Hello and welcome to Campaign Comrades, your favorite leftist gaming channel. It is Matt and I today. We are here to talk Switch 2. We have our hands on the system, we've been playing games, we've been testing out all its different functionalities, and we have formulated our thoughts on its performance, both in terms of hardware, how does the software work, how has the system been selling, what do we think the ecosystem is at right now. I know Matt and I will probably have some different opinions on certain things, so let's get into it. Matt, how was your experience with the Switch 2 from the moment of opening?
I mean, it's more of the same. It's still a Switch.
It's more Switch, folks. You heard it here first.
Like, I undid where my original Switch was sitting on my desk.
Yeah.
Set up the new one. Had to do a little bit of cable management, but I mean, the setup process was pretty simple and straightforward. The transfer was easy. Unboxing was simple. It showed up at 6:30 in the morning from Walmart.
I was surprised how fast my stuff transferred, even like over, Wi-Fi. And
I mean, that's just because Nintendo games in general are smaller. Like, I think I only had about 180 gigabytes of data, roughly. I'm doing the math in my head.
Like 96 or something like that. That number is sticking out in my head for some reason. But like I was expecting it to be like, hours, but it was pretty seamless. And I know some people had posted like difficulties with if you were a multi-Switch household to begin with, there is maybe a little bit of confusion because it's like you have to have your account's primary Switch doing the transfer, and some people may not, particularly like, the casual family who's got a regular Switch, they've got a couple Switch Lights, but for me it was just I only had the one and it was super fast.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, I have the two, but the second transferred over to the OLED and made that the primary, and then the OLED transferred over to the two, and that is now the primary, so it's not like there were two active switches going back and forth.
Speaking of the unboxing, and I had recorded some footage of it that I will admit is not very good footage. I don't have much experience with the unboxing, and I hope to post some of it here. If I ever do it again, I feel like I need to get a better camera. If maybe a better webcam, I don't want to break the bank just for that, but
you also need to get white silk gloves.
Yeah, but my camera I could get it up to high resolution, but then it was a literal slideshow or, reasonable frame rate with just some blurry footage. But you'll see in that the unboxing for the console itself was fine. I honestly struggled to open the Pro Controller box. It was like really fucking snug, and I'm just like, I'm trying to get on camera just to open it without breaking something, without, hitting the camera, without getting caught in the cables that I had laid out. It was a bit of a mess, but I found the setup of the console itself to be very easy. And it's got a good feel. I will definitely say
that was the first reaction I had when I unboxed it, because I didn't dock it immediately because I was leaving my original Switch plugged into the Ethernet so it could do the transfer over Ethernet, while the Switch 2 was on Wi-Fi and just plugged into to the charging cable. But the hands-on feel, like, it feels a lot more solid and sturdy overall than the original Switch. I think that's partially just because it's bigger, so it just fits my big meaty claws.
We've got bigger hands here, so
yeah.
I will say
the unit itself, like the actual Switch unit, not just the Joy-Cons attached, is very dense.
I like the kind of more matte metallic feel to it, and like that it feels weighty enough. It feels like, just right, kind of in terms of weight, where you want it to feel solid in hand and not like just a flimsy piece of plastic that, like, your sticky nephew is going to destroy.
One of the main complaints on the original Switch was that the Joy-Con rail attachment system left a little bit of play and some sort of, it was like a squeak almost to it.
It's really satisfying to snap the magnetic Joy-Cons back in.
Yeah. That's one of those systems that, I don't remember if you recall this exactly, but when the Lenovo Legion Go came out, I think it was 2 years ago at this point, their attachment system was magnetic. And I was skeptical because of, just the nature of how their attachment system worked. But the Switch 2 having the tabs on the actual Joy-Con that stick into the system that create a positive lock alongside the magnet, it's pretty secure. And I know people were concerned about the tab that sticks out of the console that goes into the Joy-Con for charging and connection, and being worried about that being a breakable component. I don't know how you would do that. Like, I think
you would have to be in there.
Effort.
You'd have to be in there, fucking with it.
They were concerned that the Joy-Con attachment and detachment method was going to potentially bend them, but I don't know.
With how it goes.
Granted, like, I don't have children. Like, I know children are in the engineering world, we discuss it as the 1,000 monkeys syndrome.
If there's a way to break something, they'll find it. But I think it's largely because of, you have the release up top, the way it forces you to pull it that way versus there's almost no way to pull it the way that would then kind of potentially
that's
snap
also
something.
Why the tabs are built the way they are.
Yeah. That, like, they're really, the only way to come off is just kind of to slide them off like that. So I don't think that's an issue.
And I know there'd been some concern about potential mishits on those tabs that unlocked the Joy-Cons. But in my hands-on handheld experience, your fingers don't go there naturally. They sit on the triggers and the bumpers pretty calmly. And even if you do accidentally hit the button and pull the Joy-Con out, unless you actively pull the rest of the Joy-Con, it's just going to snap back right in place.
And, like, the button has a little bit of give that it doesn't actually fully catch until you are actively really pressing it in. So I think they've taken that into account. What has been your experience handheld versus docked?
So I've only done a little bit of handheld. I did that last night. And obviously I'm not comparing the most intensive of gameplay because I've been playing Fire Emblem Engage. So I was just messing around, in the Somniel, doing a bunch of, talking to people, checking off all the achievements to get my bond fragments, going in, exploring the Somniel to find items, doing some workouts, arena fights, things like that. But, so as an owner, I have the original Switch OLED, I have a Steam Deck, and now I have a Switch 2.
Don't forget the Portal. Don't forget the PS Portal.
I don't count that in the same. These are dedicated handhelds.
Well, what about for ergonomics, though? What about?
Ergonomically, the Portal is probably the best overall hand feel
because it's literally just a DualSense around chopped in half.
Yeah, I would say that the Switch 2, the thinness makes it a little less comfortable than the Steam Deck, but I don't know numbers wise where they fall, but it's just a lot more comfortable to hold long term than the Steam Deck because the Steam Deck is
what I was saying. The weight, it's kind of in the Goldilocks realm, right? It's not too light, not too heavy.
Because that's the one thing the Steam Deck has is it's a bit of a weighty beast.
That's kind of where I'm at. I find the stress points between holding the Switch 2 and the Steam Deck to fall in different points. For the Steam Deck, I would start to get a little bit of fatigue in the forearms from trying to hold it, or if I'm lying in bed and playing, maybe one of my arms goes a little numb.
I would never lie down holding a Steam Deck overhead in bed.
I'm more confident. I'm more confident in myself.
That's just asking for some sleep time, wake up because you're getting smashed in the face.
Yeah. I played the entirety of Citizen Sleeper 1 and 2 and 1,000 Time Resist and some other recent ones purely on the Steam Deck in bed, and it was totally fine. But with the Switch 2, you don't get the arm fatigue, but I definitely was getting a hand cramp.
I only played for an hour, so I wasn't noticing anything too bad. But I also, when I hold a Switch, I'm not really gripping it in the same way. I kind of more let it rest in the bottom of my palm and then let my fingers kind of cradle around the top and just kind of caress it into the grip rather than kind of try to hold it.
So I'm hopeful that I ordered a third-party case/ergonomic grip, removable Joy-Con grip thing that should still allow me to use the dock as normal. And I'm hoping that will improve that one complaint that I had.
The one thing I will say is it was the same thing I argued before, and we had some YouTube comments that argued back. I still think that the Switch 2 is going to be my superior backpack handheld. The case is much slimmer. The unit is much slimmer. It's going to slide into a backpack much easier than the Steam Deck case, which is a lot fatter and chunkier. It's a lot easier to fit into a bag and carry around.
I know for me, it will challenge the Steam Deck a little bit in terms of my use case. Because if there is a game that I would like to play portably, I would then look at performance, yes, but that It's like, can I get it physically on Switch? Then be like, yeah, I think I might choose Switch over just adding more to my digital Steam library, just because physical media is an important thing to me. But that kind of is a good transition into another issue that I definitely have, and we can kind of move it into a general software discussion of physical media on Switch is in a kind of precarious point right now. And I know you can explain what's going on with the size of the cartridge limitations, and that's what's leading to the whole game key cart thing, where it's literally just a code on a chip. That, there's limitations there, but I worry that while maybe the cost of higher size cartridges might change in the future and might help developers go back to physical media, that if a Nintendo sees that, and some of these third parties see that sales are unaffected by it, that they'll be like, yeah, it's still cheaper to do it this way, so we're just following the industry and moving in a digital future. And if that becomes the case, I don't know that I might still pick the Steam Deck. But
I still think game keycarts are an overall positive compared to where we were Switch generation with how some of these worked, where it was just a one-time redeemable code in box.
No, I hate that. I don't like selling. That's just a waste of plastic.
That's what a keycard is an evolution on, is a one-time downloadable code in box.
But I guess, as I say that still feels like waste of plastic and components to me. If anything, it's more wasteful than just buying it on the eShop, right?
Yeah, but there's the consideration for gifts and how people buy things. Is grandma going to go into the My Nintendo website and pay for her grandchild to have...
The eShop is more user-friendly now. The new eShop actually works better than the old one did.
But if you're buying them from a computer or your phone, it's the My Nintendo store.
Yeah, but it's not good enough for grandma yet. It has not passed the grandma test.
That's where some of that right now sits, where you're still going to want to have that storefront where mom, grandma, they can walk into a store for your birthday, for Christmas, for... whatever your gifting holiday of choices, and they can go up and be like, okay, there's the Pokemon game my kid has been talking about on the shelf, except that's a bad example because all Nintendo games are all on cart. I don't know what kid's asking for Bravely Default or...
A kid of culture, that's who.
There's still a little bit of need to have that physical storefront access.
And that definitely exists more for Nintendo, I think, than...
Well, yeah, Nintendo in particular, I can only speak on my local Walmart, but Nintendo has the largest presence in the physical video game section. I think they have 3 full cabinets.
That's the
at
same
my
at
Walmart. PlayStation has 2, I believe. And then, I've documented this in the group chat before.
Xbox is just accessories.
The Xbox cabinets have been slowly shrinking and slowly consolidating.
And they're just accessories. It's controllers.
It's basically just accessories, maybe a couple games, and then like a stack of Series X's that no one's buying.
Like, I can't even tell you, I was just in Best Buy picking up a game, and then I grabbed Rido Remastered as well. And yeah, absolutely true that Nintendo still is the biggest section. PlayStation is close, and then I couldn't even tell you on what part of the...
Best Buy is doing it. I know they probably are going to set up to do it, but Nintendo has primarily been the one in store that there have been the physical kiosks where you can grab a controller and play some Mario Kart, or whip around and test out how the stuff feels in store.
But the Best Buy I go to doesn't have any of those for consoles, but it does have a ROG Ally that you can touch. That's it.
Which there's an interesting tidbit there. We've already talked Steam Deck. ROG Ally being the Windows side of how PC handhelds work, and the discussion recently along the Xbox partnership with Asus ROG to add a Xbox-centric skin, more or less, over the top that's supposed to reduce some of the Windows background noise to make your unit play better handheld with Windows, because Windows is a hog and likes to take all your resources. It'll be interesting to see how, when that not only releases on its own, but when that because it's supposed to be an update that will release to other Windows handhelds down the line. It'll be interesting to see the comparison between that, Steam Deck, and Switch 2. Because right now, with Rido Remastered, there was a comparison that came out recently of Switch 2 versus Steam Deck versus Ally. Switch 2 plays more comparatively to the ROG Ally in terms of power and maintaining 60 FPS and visuals compared to that of the Steam Deck, which was hurting a little bit actually, which was an interesting thing to look at and read.
Yeah, I think,
But I mean,
yeah,
Steam Deck is also pushing 4 years old at this point.
yeah, but my relationship to the handhelds I think, will be ever evolving. But continuing software, though, what have been your thoughts about the games you've been playing, and what have you found that plays well? And because that, I think, is the interesting dilemma that Nintendo finds themselves at, is that they released the Switch with not a robust enough first party lineup. I think.
I mean, it mirrors exactly.
We see that Mario Kart, is selling a shit ton. The attach rate is insane. So I think we talked about that in the last podcast episode. Just like that, at least if you're following Japan, the Japan statistics, the attach rate is like well over 70% of console buyers.
The only thing I'll say is it's mirroring pretty similarly the original Switch launch. Swap out Breath of the Wild for Mario Kart. A month later, you swap out Mario Odyssey for Donkey Kong Bonanza. Similar team, similar game style. It looks like their target is to basically have something releasing fairly monthly from their first-party studio lineups, whether it be Donkey Kong, Mario Kart. You'll have some Switch 2 editions of things like Mario Party Jamboree, and you'll have Kirby and the Forgotten World of the next ones.
In August.
You've got some bigger, I mean, for them at the very least, bigger things like Pokemon Legends Z to A. We'll still be getting Metroid Prime 4 at some point this year.
I think actually that I gotta do a little bit of internalizing, a little soul searching. That I do think part of it is it's a little bit of a me problem, a little bit of a more kind of adult kind of, and even podcaster brain kind of problem. To me, the Switch 1 releasing with Breath of the Wild is so much different than Mario Kart, because, playing this new Zelda that is redefining not only the franchise,
it was also
but
a different setup for them, because they needed the Switch 1 far more important as far as being successful coming off of the Wii U.
Yeah, well, the point that I think I'm getting at here is that, like, it has not, I think, had any effect on the success of the console, right? It's their best console launch ever. It's already sold
console launch ever. I believe the numbers surpassed both PS4 and 5, and it's.
I know I've heard it referred to in both ways, that best console launch ever, best Nintendo console launch ever. I was kind of being conservative there, but selling 3.5 million units in the first 4 days. That's insane. So I don't think it's affecting them. I think it's just
there's some funny aspect there. 3.5 million units in 4 days is like Steam Deck lifetime sales.
Yeah. This one's funny, has already overtaken the combined lifetime sales of the entire Xbox Series family and PS5 Pro in Japan. Not surprised about the Pro, but coupled with the entirety of Xbox.
You were like, I'm not surprised by the Pro. There's no surprise about Xbox in Japan.
It's a lot funnier to see the entire Xbox lineup versus
the
very niche.
Yeah.
High-end console
sales in Japan come from stationed U.S. military.
yeah. But the point that I was trying to make is that for the majority of these people that are buying the Switch 2, Mario Kart is a good enough launch title for the casuals, for the kids, for the majority of their user base. Mario Kart is great. It's a great casual game, and we'll get into. I think Mario Kart World is fun.
Well aware that there will absolutely be another Nintendo Direct this year at some point.
Yeah.
That will detail out some more launch
windows. Yeah. I get it. It's more just right now, it's if I'm kind of thinking.
It's you're not playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, but that Direct got me full Bonanza, let me tell you.
But so let me just kind of finish this point, then we'll get to Bonanza. We'll get to the Bananas. But just playing the new Zelda game, which reinvigorates the franchise, which revolutionizes open world game design, is a game that you can dump 100, 200 hours in, that you're playing that at launch. You're like, this is the best console launch ever. This is great. I'm so hyped on the console because it's got one of the defining games of the generation.
One of the 13.5 million people who owned a Wii U could also play that game
at sub 20 FPS. The
That's
whereas
why
the difference with
I haven't plugged that in to test out the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom upgrades, but
so
I
it's like
want
to me. But so to me, like Mario Kart, it's like I put in probably about 5 hours or whatever. I've done all the cups. I've done a lot of stuff. I've explored, and it's fine. Like it's fine for me to pick up again here and there. My nephews have been here this past week. I've been playing with them. My nephew actually was getting quite good at Mario Kart. Oddly enough, I started him off on 50cc, and then the last couple races before he went home we did 100cc. He actually was doing better at 100cc than he was at 50. But it was just a proud uncle moment to see
they also
when
carry the
he came in
benefit with
second
Switch
in one
2
race.
that it's backwards compatible with your Switch 1 library. So there's also a little bit of the same thing that the PS5 and the Xbox Series had when they launched, and that was you already have a backlog of games for your other console that we're expecting you to be able to play and want to continue to play.
Right, but that's what then has left me probably the most disappointed with the launch is the actual status of, and it's unique to me, this is a me problem, it's of the particular games in my backlog that I want to play are the ones that are not in the best state and that are playable, but in some places look and perform. Said in the last episode, I tried to play Xenoblade 3 and it looks terrible. And I know I can already tell it's a game that I'm going to love, so I don't want the experience to be tarnished by suboptimal viewing experience. So if I can wait for hopefully a better update, and no, I'm not playing through the backlog as vociferously as they would maybe hope or expect. So I'm kind of left feeling a little empty on the software side.
Then you just played KOTOR.
I've found some, but it's like not the ideal for me. Like I played KOTOR, the Switch 1 version, played fine. I had no issues. Looked, not like we're talking high quality textures or anything, but resolution was good, performance was good, played well. But it's not what I really want to be playing, right? And I really want Monolith to put out either a resolution patch or a full Switch 2 version. I've been like just checking Reddit every day just to be like, what's the status? What's the status of the Xenoblade series?
From what I've played with Fire Emblem Engage, I haven't really noticed any issues in resolution. I mean, it's obviously a lighter game visually because of the style of gameplay. And the only real times you're going to be outside of that are when you're, exploring the Somnial or walking around the map after combat. But
which is pretty bare to begin with.
Yeah, like the runs smooth. My experience has been that from what I've seen and what I've read, that games that had an internal resolution that had to drop to try to maintain frame rates, the resolution is more consistent. For games where they maintain the resolution but then would drop the frame rate is more consistent. And that's just bids on new hardware. And that's also up to the developer when they set up the game, whether, how they set up, is it a locked frame rate that's targeting something, or is it an unlocked frame rate, which is, fluctuating more wildly. But I mean, overall, like I played some of the GameCube emulator, and like I was having a grand old time playing Soul Calibur 2. It brought me right back to sitting in my basement with my 22-inch Sony box TV, beating the shit out of my sister because she doesn't know how to play fighting games.
And neither do I. So like, that's kind of not means nothing to me. But I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Have you seen anything about Wind Waker? About what
people
what's going
seem
on?
to be enjoying it? Like, I'm just waiting till I have a better window because I want to. At some point, I want to have all of the Zelda games on a modern console beaten. And I've already beaten Zelda 1, have to finish Zelda 2. That was really painful. Link to the Past, Oracle of Ages, need to go back and finish Oracle of Seasons. So, like, I'm a big fan of the Nintendo Switch Online service. I think for what you pay for, you get a pretty robust virtual catalog of the older Nintendo games, which I think hold up better as something. I mean, if you're only paying the $20 a year for the base subscription, that's a pretty solid, NES, SNES, Game Boy. That's a pretty good triple lineup there. We pay for the family plan for the expansion pack, so it only costs us roughly $20 a year. And I mean, the add of Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis, and the GameCube now, like that's a pretty solid. Like I would expect at some point there to be like Expansion Pass Plus or something like that. where
God, I can't deal with all the tiers. It drives me insane. I really
it's not
hope
that
that
complicated, I
I
promise.
know, but it drives me crazy. I still
But
hate
like
it.
I've always said that the best part that you get out of the expansion pack is actually the included DLCs. So like I don't have to pay for a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom upgrade because I'm already paying for the expansion pack. So I can just plop my Switch 1 card in, get the update to the Switch 2 version, and I can just take off with my save. I don't need to pay for a Switch 2 version to have the actual cartridge, or I don't need to pay I think it's a $20 upgrade.
If I was a game replaying enjoyer, I would be having a grand old time, like just pop Tears of the Kingdom back in and dump another 150 hours in, but I don't think that's in the cards for me. So again,
You
a
never
me
did
problem.
the DLC of Breath of the Wild, right?
That's true, but the Switch 2
The Switch 2 version includes the DLC.
don't think that's well.
It is.
The one that's the cartridge. If you buy the Switch 2 in box, it's not. That was a big controversy that it was not. I'm looking it up now.
Because it's also included in the expansion pack regardless.
Breath of the Wild's Nintendo Switch 2 edition won't include the DLC. But I think that means the one that you buy in the box. Like if you're buying the new full Switch 2 version on the red cartridge, doesn't include the DLC. If you have the Switch 1 version with the upgraded bit, then yeah, you have it that way. But say you're purchasing it for the first time, it's not on the Switch 2. I remember that was a big deal. I never bought the DLC from the Switch 1 version, but so since we already subscribed to the expansion pass, I could play it.
Pretty sure.
But what did it include again? I remember you got the motorcycle. I remember that. But like,
So
what else?
You have to unlock the motorcycle. It's essentially another dungeon, more or less, where you have to first go through and do the one-hit challenge, where you're given a weapon that has infinite damage, but you only have one hit's worth of health. You have to do that. That'll unlock the dungeon. At the end of the dungeon, you fight a monk, boss fight. Monk has hands, and then he gives you the motorcycle. And then there's also the Master Sword challenges. It's like a arena fight that you work through that charges up and powers up the Master Sword more and more.
Yeah, still not enough for me to go back and play more of that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm personally pretty positive on the system. I like the feel. I like the performance. I like the subtle changes they've made to UI. I haven't mentioned in our discussion of software, Welcome Tour. I ended up paying only like $7 because I had like $3 in eShop credits. I have played Welcome Tour, and it's a very interesting little product that I find fascinating and also am immensely repelled by. I don't like that it costs money. It shouldn't have, but I don't think it's an egregious amount of money, and it's not something that you would miss out on by not playing it. You absolutely don't need to look at this. It's a cool, at its best, it's a cool little museum piece, like looking at little bits of history of Nintendo and Nintendo consoles and the development of different technology is kind of cool. I think the mini games mostly kind of suck because they're all basically just it's all just the mouse controls, which work fine enough but are also just finicky enough with these kind of time challenges that I find annoying. The coolest part beyond that kind of museum aspect of it are the tech demos. Those are pretty cool. Those are kind of geeky little nerdy things to kind of, it's fun to see these hardware developers, kind of geek out in their own way about like, get so excited about, isn't it cool that we made HD Rumble 2 in this way that we can actually have it produce audible sound cues for you from how it's vibrating and at what frequency? That's kind of cool. And that's fun to see. But then like how it's like gated and designed in ways where you've got to literally just go find these stamps around each part just to go to the next one. I saw someone describe it this way, like imagine using the museum kind of metaphor. Imagine if you had to go and get a stamp collection in order to like say go see the Rembrandt that you came to the museum to see, right? The fact that you can't just kind of go anywhere and examine the things at your own pace is just really weird. A weird game design thing just to pad it out into try to make you feel that it's worth the $10, where It should just be like, yeah, go nuts, go enjoy and share your love for the weird little quirky Nintendo tidbits and take some quizzes and learn about Nintendo history. And so it could have been better in that regard, but I do not recommend anybody go out and buy it. I felt obligated to test it out. Okay, yeah, final thoughts before we wrap it up here. I was saying I'm pretty happy with the console and the hardware, lukewarm to disappointed on software, and hopeful for the future, I think is my kind of feelings encapsulated.
I think your software issues are a skill issue. You should just play Donkey Kong Bananza.
I will admit that Bananza, as I was watching the Bananza Direct, there's like a lot of things in there that I'm like, this is obviously part of the Mario Odyssey team that's making this.
It's a spin-off team.
It's a smaller group from within the Tokyo team. And there's obviously a lot of that DNA in there. And I didn't like Mario Odyssey, so I don't know that I like that stuff. But then there's a lot of Zelda influence in there too. And that stuff definitely interested me. The destructibility, the kind of
destructibility is the part that I found very interesting. And that's because I putting my conspiracy theory hat on, I think this was originally developed to be a Switch 1 game, but the destructibility would have made the Switch 1 melt.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons that it's pushed to where it is now as a Switch 2 game. But I think the destructibility aspect is going to add it'll be very interesting to see how that plays through gameplay-wise. Because if I can destroy everything, I'm going to try to destroy everything.
But then I also find the internal logic of the game to be completely stupid. Kind of alienating in that way. It's just, oh yeah, he turns into flying ostrich and a zebra and also Super Saiyan 4 with his ass out. It's the Broly caked up meme. I don't know. I ultimately come down on I don't think it's for me. I don't think that one's for me, but I'll be happy for all the people who will enjoy it.
I'll put 100 hours into it and get everything.
Insane. There's so many other better things I'd rather be playing.
I'm playing Resident Evil 4 and hate myself. And
oh my god.
Like, funny monkey go Bananza.
Yeah. Fuck. Oh, man, my future is not looking very good.
But I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what an upcoming Direct has to say about future releases. Obviously, we don't know full release dates for things like the Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, which would be cool to find out. Because currently, as it sits, my Steam Deck's only purpose really is if I'm at a point where all I want to do is play Elden Ring again, I'll just be playing that portably. And I've said it where it's like, if they set it up so I could move my save over, it would be over, because then it would just be my Switch 2 version would be the one that I'd be playing it on. Be interesting to see, what the future of something like Duskbloods, which they said 2026. After playing Night Rain so much, I'm very interested to see how Miyazaki's cooking with that. But we know Nintendo generally like to hold things close, and we've learned through the Switch 1's life cycle that they would rather hold on to things and release them at a pace that's required to maintain momentum for the console. So I am fully expecting, there will be fairly frequent Switch 2 game releases over the course of the next year, just to continue to maintain that momentum and push forward. Maybe we'll get there's a new Hyrule Warriors coming out
I am very excited for that one.
Yes.
That one looks very good.
Actually,
and I really want to play that.
The Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity are the two that I want to try out on Switch 2 before that, because they apparently run better because of the frame rate.
But for real, my somewhat negative attitude would be completely reversed if just Nintendo, Monolith Soft, release these Switch 2 versions of the Xenoblade series.
Xenoblade Chronicles 4. They don't upgrade anything.
And I will become the Nintendo Super Soldier. I will take the serum. And
from everything I've seen, X plays and looks really well.
Yes. X is supposed to be the best, which makes sense.
So that's one that I'd been putting off that I might just slot in and go.
Yeah, I wanted to play 3 first, to be honest.
But technically X came out well before all that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I know, but it's just I felt like I wanted to put a cap on the series and then go to the kind of spin-off.
And then there'll be a Nintendo Direct and you'll hear flute music, and all of a sudden Xenoblade Chronicles 4 and you'll be like, cap, no cap. We keep going, bud. Is that Shulk?
If that happens, then yeah, I'm just going to have to suffer through the sub 720p stretching, but whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, things could turn around in an instant for me. If they just release a resolution update, you'll never hear me stop singing its praises.
And I'm sitting here pretty satisfied overall with everything that I've had and used. And I've got the GameCube controller. I'm ready to jump right in, play some Wind Waker. It's going to be 2003 all over again. I'm going to be sitting on the floor. There's going to be a DiGiorno pizza in the oven.
There is no future. There is only DiGiorno.
Hey, there's other things similar between now and 2003 that are currently going on.
Yeah. We are rapidly reapproaching the cool zone. All right, folks. That'll be it for us today. Thank you, Matt. We will see you next time. Till then, you can follow us on all the social medias, bar Twitter. Check out the podcast, because this is a YouTube video. I had to just reorient my brain for a second.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Check this out, cut into 10-second short clips so that you can get your dopamine hits in small pieces.
I think next week for the podcast, we're just doing our month roundup of news, and then it's the weekend of the 4th, and Mike and Andrew are coming up here, so I don't know.
That would have been Andrew's free month pick.
Yeah, which we were going to, I think,
which was GTA.
GTA series, which we'll either try to do in person or maybe push a week instead. We'll figure that out. So be on the lookout for updates on that. Till next time, goodbye.